Good morning. I literally just woke up 5 minutes ago. I've just made myself a coffee, got myself a cup of hot shilajit, and I'm gonna make this next video. So if I have pauses, it's because I'm having a sip of my coffee because it's still hot, and I hate cold coffee. And I need my coffee. I have to have my coffee first thing in the morning. So just bear with me because this is an interesting video. Now, a lot of you parents will know that you've had children who have reported to see things with red eyes in their room, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in the past about red eyes. I did a video and I've actually written a book called Red Eyes Tell No Lies. It's a children's book. It is written. Once it's illustrated, then I can, publish them, because I have a whole collection of stories for parents and children to read that teach them about the paranormal and the supernatural and what they really are and how to deal with them correctly, regardless of your religion, regardless of your belief, regardless of anything. It is the truth. It is backed by science. It is backed by real life evidence. It is backed by an area of theology and the unknown, the unexplained, that is backed by science. It is backed by fact. It is backed by experience. It is backed by first-hand knowledge, because everything I write is based on my life or the lives of people that I've been called to help with their children or with their own lives when they're dealing with the supernatural and paranormal. And I've turned them into stories. I've turned them into movies and video games, and we're going to turn it into a entertainment empire. There is no entertainment empire out there that works solely based on the occult, and the occult is a blanket term for everything from your belief in God to how you practice your beliefs, right through to like the esoteric, the spiritual, the devil worship, to, being a full-blown Christian, Catholic, Muslim, whatever. Every religion in the world has the occult embedded in it. Taking a sip. So, red eyes tell no lies. If you've got children or have had children who report seeing something with red eyes in their room or anywhere with red eyes, there's one or two ways to deal with it. But firstly, I want to tell you a story, because it's what started this whole thing off for me with the beast with red eyes. So as a lot of you know, I live in the UK. I came over here to be with my Scottish husband in the year 2000, and in 2002 we got married, and then it was like a year or so later we finally got to have our honeymoon. It was around about 2005, 2004, I think. It was just before my mum got sick and died. So we were up in the Highlands of Scotland. We were sort of up around Argyll and Bute area, I think it was. We were going back and forth between the Midlands and the Highlands and the Lowlands, but we were based in a beautiful wee loch town called Inverary. And it's one of my favourite places in the whole world. I love Scotland with all my heart. And we were coming back one night from somewhere. I can't remember where it was. But we always had to go through blimmin' Glencoe. And I don't like that place at all. It's one of the places where I want to go with my cleansing clay and do a massive energetic cleansing there. But we were coming through this forested bit kind of just before we got into Inverary. There was like, we were sort of behind Inverary Castle on the main little road there running alongside the loch, and there was like forests on either side. And I remember there was, they were doing roadworks there, where there was just one little electric stoplight, and this was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were driving in the dark. We'd just gotten out of the Glencoe thing, which it takes me a while for my heart to calm down after visiting that place because of the stuff that I see there, because of the slaughter of the McDonald's and that at the hands of the Campbells. And I'm a McDonald. I've got McDonald in me, as does I think my ex-husband's family have got McDonald in them. It wasn't just the McDonald's. I know there were Frasers and all that there. I had ancestors that were slaughtered by the Campbells there. Taking us up. So I don't like it. I've seen things there that I don't ever want to see again. And it's just one of those places when you go through it, everybody says it just has that eerie kind of feeling that where you're expecting something to happen. So we'd just come out of that, and everything was calming down again. And then all of a sudden we saw, well, I didn't see the man standing on the road. My ex saw the man standing on the road, but I saw when we drove through him and the mist went through the car. But he thought he'd hit someone, and then but he didn't say anything because obviously realised when there was no thud that he was dealing with something, like paranormal. He wasn't dealing with a real person standing on the road. And he said to me, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Did I see what?" And he said, "Did you see that man standing in the car?" And because I could tell he was panicked, and he said, "I drove through him." And I said, "I saw like the mist," because this was like November time, and on in the northern hemisphere that's cold. It's getting cold, so the mist. But the fact that it travelled through the car, I said to him, "I didn't see the man, but I saw like the mist in the car," which is physically impossible. You can't drive through mist with the windows closed and everything, and person height. It goes through the metal and the glass to get inside the car and then travel out the back of it. I'm a scientist. I wasn't back then, but I am now. And, I have spent many, 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 many years going over incidences that happened to me as a child and a young person and as an adult that I have now been able to explain because I developed this science to explain it all. So something made me lock the car door. I don't know why, but I just kind of reached over and locked the car door. And we knew we wanted to get out of there. And then before we knew it, the both of us saw a pair of red eyes to the right of us in the forest bit. And it was just like looking at us. And Chris was like, "I'm getting the hell out of here." And he started like speeding up, not speeding, but driving faster than he should at 2 o'clock in the morning on a road we didn't really know, out in the middle of nowhere in Scotland. And this thing with red eyes chased us. It got faster and faster and faster. The thing we couldn't understand was how fast it was able to like weave its way through the trees when we were going around bends and dips and corners and that, and it was keeping up with us perfectly. And we got to those bloody stoplights, didn't we? And it was on red, and we had to stop, and we were terrified. We didn't know what the hell was going on. And he was the one that said to me about the demon dogs. And that stoplight, I can't even. It felt like we had been there for about an hour. It may even gotten to the point where I think he just thought, "F this," because we could see the other side of the bridge. So we knew nothing was coming. I just know that we didn't want to wait around much longer. Once we got to the other side of the bridge, it stopped chasing us, having us up. And it bothered me ever since. Then, of course, we got the internet properly because we had really bad internet that I wasn't given any access to. Now I know why. we got the internet, and I was able to start researching. And then of course, because we kept going to National Trust places and Heritage Trust places, me doing what I do, and then when my blog came about, obviously hearing stories, paying attention, and I started to realise what it was we were dealing with, which is why I wrote the children's book, Red Eyes Tell No Lies. I started writing it in 2020. I've got a whole pile of just started or unwritten stories that I was getting ready to do before I had to stop and fend for my life and, fight for justice for what was done to me because of my ex, who was stealing my stories, and people who have no concept of what Indigeneity is or what we do, and turning it into racial attacks and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so moving on. So now I'm doing these podcasts. Now I'm about to get broadband once I can find a monthly contract, and I get to finish my stories. I get to write the ones that have been sitting in my head. I get to finish writing Andre's Dragon, which is now the legend of Brahena Saithusa and blah, blah, blah. So now I can get my podcasts out there. I can get my stories on my little radio station. I can get them out on my Spotify, and I can get them published. I might publish them as ebooks, but I would like to publish them as, physical books as well. So, what are we dealing with? If you're Celtic, Pict, even Viking, if you're anywhere from this side of Europe, you're going to have tales of the beast with red eyes. They're called by many different names, but just for the sake of argument, we'll just call them demon dogs. You've got the Cerberus as well. They're the same thing, kind of, but they have 3 heads. But they have red eyes. And there's one that you need to act against and one that you don't. One is a privilege and one is a warning. The one that is a warning is the one that chases you, the one that scares the life out of you, the one that will not stop chasing you until you get the message that you are to leave the area expeditiously. You have to have your wits about you. You have to get yourself out of there as soon as possible, because it is a warning that you are encroaching on ancestral lands or ancient lands that are exceptionally sacred. When you're talking about Scotland and Ireland, it could be battlefields. There could be burial mounds that no one knows about. There could be monoliths. There could be, like a former temple or a former castle where there's only like a few rocks left under the ground that even archaeologists haven't found. But whatever is there on that land, you have encroached upon it, and the dogs are there to protect the ancestors, to make sure there's no heretical attacks. People going there wanting to take photos, wanting to take souvenirs that is an affront to their faith, their religion, their gods, whatever it is that they believed in when they were buried there or built there. It's sacred land, and it's sacred land to those people. I believe that the reason why it may have been chasing after us is because I was with my ex-husband, who was a McGregor. And we had been told on that trip, when we went to Stirling to William Wallace Monument, by an ex-army sergeant who was an expert in ancient swords, medieval swords, and he was giving us a lecture in the William Wallace Tower about all the different swords. It's why I love swords. I'm obsessed with swords, my son and I. Though they weren't born, but I love that sort of thing. And I must have been there for like an hour just talking to this man, asking him questions. And he was the one that said, when he got talking to our clans, about our clans, he said, if this was the medieval times, there is no way in hell a McGregor would be allowed to marry a Fraser of Lovat. Like, there is no way that her ancestor, her family would have let her marry him because he was low caste. He was like beneath her bloodline. And he said that in the old days, they would have, as soon as I announced that we were in love and getting married and blah, 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 my family members would have just quietly taken him away and I would never have seen him again. He said it would have led to, the tragic Romeo and Juliet love story of how, two people fell in love outside of their class system, and in order to protect that class system, they would remove him because you can't, someone of royalty and prestige couldn't be seen having babies and marrying someone of a lower caste. And that always stuck with me, and I started doing research around that area. And Robert the Bruce, who is an ancestor of mine, and the Fraser of Lovitz and all of that, did a lot of, were very active down around that way, let's just say. So I have reason to believe that the dog might have been protecting me from my ex because of obviously what was to come later. And this is important to know this because of the red eyes. Now, the second reason why you will see a beast with red eyes is if you have been chosen, you have been called to be given the gift of second sight. Now, second sight is like infrared eyesight, and it means that you will be able to have access to seeing time in all its full splendor and glory, where you're not restrained by this time. You will see all time. You will have access to seeing your ancestors and people of days gone by roaming the earth like you're right there in their time. They're not dead, they're not ghosts. You get to see the past. You get second sight. You don't just get the sight of the sight that you see, or even psychic sight like the third eye. Red eyes is second sight, which is beyond the psychic eye and beyond the intuitive eye and beyond the physical eye. It is second sight. You get to see everything other than what you're looking at because you've been chosen to be given the gift of second sight. So when your child sees something with red eyes, as long as, they're not being chased away, in which case you have to do your investigating and say to them, it's ancient land, it could be that your ancestors were enemies of the ancestors who had that land. It could be that, someone in your past, 50 years before you were born, might have had some involvement in why that land needs protecting. Do you know what I mean? Without knowing your family history of the area where you've witnessed the beast with the red eyes, and some of them can be human form. They don't have to be dogs. But in this area where I live, they are predominantly dogs or wolves or, canine of some sort, but not exclusive to, depending on, your folklore and your ancestry and what you believe in that. In some parts of the world, I know, like in Asian countries, in that they're human, that they're more humanoid with red eyes. And I think even in South America, in that they're they're like little tiny people with red eyes. But anyway, they're there to let you know that you have a gift and that you've been chosen to. If you can see them and you can see their red eyes, you've got second sight. You have the gift of infrared sight. Most children, obviously, with society and religion raising them to believe what they're experiencing is wrong and they shouldn't talk about it, they choose not to accept or embrace the gift. Whereas I did. When I saw mine when I was little, I've been studying the paranormal and the supernatural. I grew up around it. My house was like practical magic. And being Indigenous, my parents embraced, my ancestors, my family, we embraced that way of life. It's not foreign to us. It's not unusual to us to be walking around the dead and seeing things from history and getting signs from birds and reading the weather and knowing what the leaves are saying. That's our way of life. That was all part of our survival skills when we were evolving from apes and chimps and all of that. when we left Africa and Europe and Asia and came to Polynesia, all of knowing all that stuff was what kept us alive. It kept us fed while we were on, long treks. It kept us alive when we were out on the ocean, So it's second nature to us to be like me. It's just that everybody else I know, like me, has stopped living that way. And it's one of the reasons why our planet is dying. It's one of the reasons why our story is dying, why our genetics are dying out, and that because Indigenous people have forgotten to live this way, except me. And I live it every day of my life, and the people who are in my life know that's just who I am, and that's just how it is. And if you don't like it, you don't have to come here. You don't have to be a part of who I am. It's not going to stop me being who I am. I'm Indigenous, born and bred, and I was raised with, the Celtic ways and the Pictus ways and the Arab ways and that, because my family, my parents and their siblings and all of that fed us that side of us, the supernatural side of us. So when I saw my beast with red eyes, even though as a kid I didn't know what it was until I was an adult, I just knew that I was born with a brain that needed to figure out why it happened. Why did those Solomon Island masks jump off the wall, and go flying across the room and all that sort of thing? Why were doors slamming? I needed to know why. This was at 4, 5, 6 years old. Why my sister shapeshifted when my sisters stood around the table doing those spells that night, doing the chanting and all of that. Why did I witness her face change from being like a 17-year-old girl to an old woman? Like, why? And I was so little back then, I couldn't even see over the kitchen table. But I remember that event like it happened yesterday. I can even tell you where everyone was positioned, because kids dabble in this stuff, and it is perfectly normal for kids to dabble in the paranormal. It's normal for kids to want to investigate and tempt their knowledge and tempt law. It's perfectly natural. But what we as parents and guardians and teachers have to do is explain to them the dangers of it, explain to them what can happen, why it's happening, and what to do to fix it if it has already happened and it's gotten out of control. Arming them with knowledge arms them with the power to fix their situation and to save the situation, to save themselves as well. Because a lot of these kids, they end up losing their minds. They end up with mental health issues from the fear and the paranoia of what they think they've opened up, not realizing the truth of what it is. And so they don't know how to fix it. And then they start a whole adult life of having things like anxiety and nightmares and paranoia and nervousness and all of that, because they open doors to things that they weren't prepared to handle what could be on the other side. So this is where I come in, which is why ever since I started my blog in 2013, it was to help children understand, because children are the ones with the most power. It doesn't matter how oogie boogie you think you are as an adult, you will never be more powerful with your supernatural gifts as what you are when you're transitioning from childhood to adulthood. The prepubescent and pubescent years of a child, from a supernatural standpoint, is the most powerful, most impressionable, most important time of their spiritual and their psychological development, and there is nobody out there teaching them the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, when it comes to the occult and the supernatural. So that's where I've come in. So I've written books, I've written games, I've written movies, all teaching kids the right way without even knowing they're learning. And then, of course, it's up to the parents of the younger kids to help me do the same with them, which is why, the podcasts and then the books will come out, the movies, the games, and most kids won't even know that they've been taught a lesson about this stuff. And then, of course, there's, the Satan Clause, which is my Hallowismus movie, which is a comedy, musical, kind of lovable, movie that's going to teach people about the truth of Satan, and how if you're a Satanist, it just means that you're going to live a life of luxury with an arrogant attitude. But if you're a devil worshipper, that's something altogether different, because Satan and the devil are not the same thing. And it is so important that people know that. There is a huge difference between Satan and the devil, a huge difference. And so I have to teach people, because now with the millions and billions of fake attitudes, fake videos and fake social media stuff out there perpetuating this idea that children are demons when they die, and that ghosts can kill you, and that, that Satanists are devil worshippers and all that. It's creating a whole storm of trouble out there that doesn't need to be, because there's so many people out there making money on their social media and YouTube selling videos that are a blatant lie or out and out ignorance. So I'm here to correct that, because I don't care what adults do. You can listen to my advice, because the same thing applies to you. But my concern is children, because they're the next generation, and it is up to us here now, as adults here now, to take care of the next generation, because they're the ones that are going to look after us when we're old. And what are we raising? What's out there at the moment? Kids who are confused with their identity, their nationality, their faith, their everything that they've been led to believe has all been a lie, has all been turned upside down. They're now being subjugated to digital control and, tyrannical governments, and that we're just going to raise the next generation of angry, bitter, twisted, isolated human beings who are just going to walk away from us all and leave us to deal with the aftermath of what we've allowed to happen. The aftermath of the children that grow up after a Starmer and Trump government is going to be all on us, because that's the government that were around when we were adults. We put them in there. So we have to fix it. Even if we didn't vote for them, we still have to be the ones to fix it, to make sure that our children can grow up in a better world than the one that these leaders are trying to create for us now. It starts with the parents. It starts with the voters. I know I'm doing my bit with my boys. So arm yourself with knowledge. Forewarned is forearmed. So just to recap, if you or your child has seen something with red eyes and you're being chased, it's because you're encroaching on very sacred territory, and they're simply telling you to keep away. Do your research. Find out if your ancestors walked along that path. Maybe they're the reason why there's a burial mound. Maybe maybe not. Maybe you have nothing to do with it, but you just happen to be someone from Japan visiting somewhere in Scotland, and they see you as a foreigner and a possible threat to the sacred land, and so they're just giving you a friendly reminder to keep moving, and they will scare the crap out of you in order to do it, because they are there to do one thing and one thing only, and that is protect the sacred land, protect the ancestors on that land, or protect the land that the ancestors made sacred. And that's all they care about. If you see a beast with red eyes and it's just staring at you, or it follows you around, or it peekaboos at you, it's letting you know that you've been chosen for an ascension. That at some point in your life you're going to be called to go through an ascension, where at the end of it you will be guaranteed to discover supernatural powers, because even the Bible says that when you ascend, when you muster all your virtues, and you add hope and faith to those virtues, at the end of it, you will be bestowed supernatural powers. So that explains me and why I can do all that I can do. But you have to earn it. But it means that you've been selected by your ancestors. It means that if you've seen something with red eyes, you have been chosen to be the one out of your family to hold the power and have the power to make a difference in the world on a supernatural level, on a biblical level, on a scientific level. But the world will know who you are. And that's why if you see them with red eyes and you're not being chased, it's a blessing. You've been bestowed a blessing to be the one person out of all your family to make a difference in the world, like a real difference. With me, it's with my occult science. Everything that I've created, everything that I've made, when I got chosen as a little girl. So, who knows what your kid could grow up to be? They might find the next cure for something. They might end up the next Mozart. They might end up taking us to the other side of the universe on a spaceship if they join my Space Academy, having a sip. So now you know. So you don't need a priest, you don't need an exorcism, you don't need a psychic or a medium. Just do some historical research, or make sure that that child that sees the thing with red eyes is given the best opportunity possible to explore who they are growing up, so that they can embrace and find themselves to become the potential that clearly the gods and ancestors see in them, as to why they've been chosen. And the beast with red eyes is letting them know, you're special, you're the one, you're it. You're the ancestor that's gonna be the ancestor of all ancestors with your family name. So there you go. So now you know. And like I said, when I get an illustration, I get the money to publish my books, I'll get them published and get them up, and then you'll be able to buy them and read them to your kids. And yeah, I'm going to have like a whole encyclopedia series. I was going to call them the Anahita Wick series, to go with my Anahita Storytime cookies, but it's all been changed now because Anahita's not a fairy. Mary is the fairy. And you know about Mary? She's the fairy. Um, so I have to rename my book series, because I've had to rename, like, since I changed Andre's Dragon to the Legend of Brehena Sythusa, and that, getting my ex-husband out of the mix. And yeah, I've had to rewrite things to get certain people out of the storyline, and I've had to write people out, and like the Dragon Princess, I've got to rename Ivan the Moon King, and yeah, so but I'm getting my broadband soon, so then I'll be able to do it, and then everything will be written properly, and then I can publish them, and then you'll be able to read the stories. But also as well, because I'll have the broadband, my son's going to help me set up my little radio station, and then I'll at least be able to start reading my stories out, and then maybe my boy and that can like help do some of the voices with me. If it starts with just me and my eldest, who's more than happy to do these stories and put on voices with me, for the radio show and that, then so be it. But I will get my broadband up once I find a contract that does a monthly. I'll get myself a proper mic. My younger son is going to do all the editing for the music and all of that. We've got our theme tune all ready to go. I'll put a link for that in the description box below. And then, yeah, Sunday mornings we'll be putting out these stories for the kids, and we'll put them on the Spotify and all that, and away we go. So it starts small, and we'll just see where it goes from there. So now you know what the beast with red eyes means. Now you don't be afraid, be fascinated, because I'm telling you now, when you understand the difference between the paranormal and the supernatural, oh my God, it's like the difference between having like a cookie crumb and getting a whole chocolate ghetto. The supernatural is so much cooler than the paranormal, because the supernatural is stuff that almost seems to defy science. It does defy science. It breaks the laws of physics. You get to stand inside things that are literally breaking the laws of physics. How is that not a turn on? Like, to me, I love what I am. I love what I do. I love what I get to bring to the people. I love what I get to create. I want to just travel the world and go to these places and meet these people who need the advice. And if you do need advice, if you do need help, you can DM me on Instagram, or leave a comment in the description box of my YouTube channel. And if there's enough I'll take the comments things off my videos. So yeah, so let's get this party started, and it starts with these little ones now. I'm going to do everything from obviously dream interpretation, talking about incidences and stories, and explaining videos that I've already put up. I also want to go to other places and do investigations and do shows and all of that. But yeah, we're just one step at a time for now. So there we go. So I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll put the next one up once I'm told what it is I have to talk about. Hold your head up high. Know that you are loved, and I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Happy Sunday. Happy Sabbath. Mwah.